Right. Here we are. Hey, we'll be starting
Hello.
soon. Yes.
Great to see you all.
Yes.
Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Middle of July. How did that happen?
I know, right?
I'm going to let a few more people in,
Great.
and we'll start at like 1 minute after the hour. How's that?
Okay, great. Perfect.
So you have about 2 minutes if you're here. Oh, now you have 1 minute.
Yes.
Grab your water, your coffee, or your tea. Check that last email, and we'll get
Yes.
started.
Yes. Yes.
Great to see you all here.
Yes. Yes.
Right. You're doing well. Hello, hello. Welcome. You're coming in. Good to see you.
Yes. Welcome. Welcome.
We're going to start at 1 minute after the hour, which will be soon.
Yes. We'll jump right in. Ready to go.
Yeah. Fruitful
Great.
friction.
Yes.
Right. Hello, hello. Welcome. The people coming in. Good to see you. Glad you're here. All
Yay.
right. Hillary, we've just clicked over to
Let's do
10:01.
it.
Let's Mountain Time. I don't know where you all are.
Mountain time. I know, right? So where we are.
So
Yes. Where
let's
we
let's
happen to be.
go.
Hello. Friction. Something that I feel is often misunderstood, and we're exploring webinar number 2. Friction. Friction for good. I was thinking about that. It kind of had me go to the Wizard of Oz Wicked kind of feeling, friction for good. And today we're going to be looking at how do we stay in the conversation that we keep not having, right? So what's happening with skipping it or moving past it, or the versions of that we'll talk about today, that sometimes skipping also can have an attack feel. We'll talk about avoid and attack. They can both be part of that. And Fruitful Friction is a beautiful goal that is its own little world that we want to explore about how to stay in conversation, how to stay in relationship, how to stay present with each other in a world that is designed to avoid or attack, where we are designed to think everything is conflict. And because of that, I don't know if everything, I get dramatic sometimes, right? So may not be everything is that, but it's easy to fall into that language. So today we're going to explore one tiny little piece of it. We have 40 minutes together, and we'll be asking you to join in with a poll. We'll have some chats, asking questions. Please feel free to ask questions. And Courtney will be following what's coming up, and then she'll stop me. She'll chime in. She'll have her camera on and off. She'll have it off in a little while, and then we'll go into the heavy duty content, and then she'll pop back if she has questions for me, and then back at the end. So this idea of how do we remain present with each other? Years of teaching presence, right? Executive presence, still do it, public speaking, presentations. And it has morphed into this idea of what we're really going for is the beautiful quality of fruitful friction. That's the outcome we want, and we have to build traction to get there. So how do we do it with, some of these conversations we're avoiding? And I'm gonna hand it over to Courtney now to
Yes.
chat about.
So one thing to keep in mind as we're getting started today is that this is a way of building awareness, and that building awareness is just the beginning. It is not the destination. So today's webinar is going to provide you with some tools and techniques and help you to start noticing patterns that may be showing up in your workplace and in your conversations. And it's going to provide you with a framework for thinking. And the thing about this, though, is communication skills shift with practice. So as you engage today, start to notice which ideas feel like they are most important to you that you would want to keep working on, because the real growth in our communication happens when we practice. And as you see on this slide, Articulate Real and Clear loves to help you practice, and we have a new awesome offering to help you practice these fruitful friction tools, and that is our certificate program. Our certificate program is a 3-month program that starts in August. And at the end of this webinar, you're going to get a special offer to join us. So if you would like to join us, we would love to have you join our Fruitful Friction Certificate program. Keep that in mind. And that's the end of my spiel, my pitch for right now. We're going to dive into the tools that we hope you'll be able to practice with us in the future. All right, Hillary, let's dive in.
So friction isn't conflict. That's one of our basic concepts. We are putting them on a continuum, right? And honestly, we have different continuums, or we're calibrated differently because of our different experience in the world and how things have happened to us and how we've responded to them and our own wiring. So something that feels like it's moving into conflict for someone else, to me, may feel like, oh, this is just a really good conversation. What we want to do is honor that continuum and start to really separate in our vocabulary friction from conflict. That friction has a positive affirmative force, we'll say that. So we're going to say that friction is constructive, conflict is destructive. Now, sometimes we're trying to use the word, and a number of really fabulous colleagues of ours, great thought leaders, are out there, doing a number of maneuvers with conflict to say positive conflict and things like that. What we're doing, honoring all of that work for sure, is we're going to separate them just because it's easier for us and easier for me that conflict is on one side and friction is on the other on this continuum. If we think about friction, it creates pearls, right? A little grain of sand, and it creates an irritant that creates a beautiful pearl. Friction, that idea that butterflies, if we don't allow them to have their force coming out of their chrysalis, if they don't have that, then they actually don't get the strength they need to have their wings strong enough to fly away, right? So we have to make sure we're not helping. We don't want smooth entry into the world for a butterfly. We want that struggle there, that friction. And we hire people to be on our teams. We enjoy working with people who have different ideas because it sparks innovation, it sparks co-creativity. And that is what the world needs, what we need. And instead, we sometimes default to trying to find the smoothest way. And we talked a lot about this in the first webinar, that smooth idea. And then we miss out on the benefits of friction. So that's what we're looking for, is that concept of the benefits of friction. So we're going to go right into a poll. So the poll is, for what important conversations do you find yourself skipping, okay, or avoiding? And it's helpful for us. So if you fill this out and it's super helpful, and hopefully, if you can't see it,
Yes.
pop into chat, like
Yeah,
let us know
please
if you
let
can't
us
see.
know if you cannot see that poll there.
Yes.
Oh, I see
Um,
people
oh,
responding.
good. We see things happen. There are a lot. You have to read, and you have to scroll there because it's so diverse, right?
Cool.
Yeah, great.
Cool. We'll give you another 5 seconds.
You're
Yeah,
bopping back and forth. I love it.
I think you can choose a few too.
Yeah, definitely, right? Yep.
Here we go. Yeah, great. All right, I'm going to close this and we'll share the results.
Cool.
Okay, that's ending. Share results. Cool. We can see here conversations we're avoiding: addressing conflict or tension, challenging an idea or decision, setting boundaries, saying no, holding someone accountable. Yeah. Asking for support or help, raising a concern early. Yeah. Discussing unmet expectations. And
You
if
know
there
what?
are other things too, you can
Yeah.
put them in the chat if we've missed any. Yeah.
And I was
Hillary.
also thinking so many things have to do with what our life, our job, what we do, that kind of thing. I was thinking raising a concern early feels like that's a specific to a role or a position, right, that one might have. I was thinking, oh yeah, yeah. Same with asking for help or support, right?
Yeah.
And I always go family versus work. I always go in both those places. Like what happens there, right? Um, Discussing unmet expectations at work may be different than with, family, partners, that kind of thing. So that's really interesting. So, and please feel free to, if you want, pop things in the chat and you can share information there too. So as we think about all of these and as we move into what are the areas in our life where we are avoiding conversations, and it can be one, it doesn't have to be all the time, because I always feel like, okay, what is that small area where we might be like, everything else I feel like I'm fine having the conversation, and then here, or oh, this person, or oh, this situation. And that's why we want to be really specific with in chatting with ourselves and going, oh yeah, I this is where it's uncomfortable, or and we'll be talking about awkward, to have those conversations. And it feels like there are a lot of tools around conflict resolution and management, and great tools for that. And we're like, okay, wait, what about before that? All right. And we're going to be using the image of a garden. And we have an artist, a dear artist friend of mine, Patty Kingsbaker, created this concept of this garden between the walls, right? And so you'll see a lot of her art in here. It's not AI, it's Patty Kingsbaker. So she is here, and we have it on our walls at the office. And for me, that distinction, that continuum is, let's choose awkward now versus anxious later. And that awkward, we have often been labeling as lack of confidence, or we've been labeling it as a sign that, oh my goodness, this is conflict. And if I am polite and if I am professional, I will not get into that conversation. I will not cause that problem. I won't cause that ripple. I won't cause that friction. The thing is, if we don't practice rocking our awkward and owning our awkward, which is something that we talk about a lot, if we don't step into the awkward, what happens is it usually builds up. And then it's a tougher conversation. There's that, like, there's language also that comes up, becomes a tougher conversation. And then we have the anxious, right? And once anxious is happening, we have chemical reactions happening in us that make it harder to stay present, that make it harder for us to be in conversation. Awkward. Some of us feel like awkward and anxious are super close. So you may need to use other words or practice rocking your awkward, right? And I always mention, of course, I'm awkward right now, super awkward, because I'm looking at a camera, I have the slides coming in, I want to make sure I'm giving you value. It's awkward, right? All of it is awkward when we do these virtual and even in person thing. I'm not in the anxious zone, though things could definitely stir up some chemical reactions in me, right? If my slides go out or something goes out, that kind of thing. But I am putting anxious, using that word and pushing that farther away and rocking my awkward to stay present with you. So if my chemical mix isn't heightened, right? And cortisol, other chemicals in there, right? We have a whole discussion about what that chemical concoction is, what that cocktail is. But right now, just thinking about knowing yourself, staying awkward, I can still be present and in the conversation with you. And I can put anxious later. I've already mentioned like tough conversations, so I'm going to call them word weeds because we're talking about garden and we'll be doing more at the garden. Word weeds, for me, I'm going to say they feel like they're socialized in before I know it. I have put all kinds of words on it. Okay, it's getting tough. I have to manage the conflict. I can feel conflict coming. And I want you to think right now and keep track on a piece of paper, or however you keep track digitally, whatever it might be, what your word weeds are that have you move into the idea of moving towards conflict already. And if you can start weeding them out, how often do I label something a tough conversation and it already sends me somewhere else, right? So all of a sudden I'm I'm already into conflict because of a word that got me there. So because we have this garden idea, weeds, you do have to keep after them, and we have to decide what weeds are, right? Because weeds for some people are growing dandelions in order to have dandelion greens in their salad. So not everyone sees a dandelion as a weed. So granted. And I could have something I thought was super helpful, like mint in my garden that I thought mint was great. And then it takes over and comes up everywhere. And then I think I get rid of it. And then it comes back. And mint is one of those tricky weeds. For me, it's a tricky weed. And because will it stay where I want it to stay? I need a pot to hold it, but it's in the garden. So that idea of using the metaphor to extrapolate and get you connected to what words lead you to heightening your chemical reaction because you're already labeling something what it might not need to be if you can weed it out. It's not a tough conversation. It's maybe awkward. I need to be in an awkward situation, but it's not necessarily a tough conversation yet. So playing with that and thinking through that concept can be helpful as we move into cultivating the messy middle. So the messy middle is the area that we say we're planting our garden. And that messy middle is between avoid and attack. So we have the avoid, which many of us connect with. I don't want to do the drama. I know I'm a drama teacher, so I am a drama teacher, and even I don't want to do the drama, right? So the drama, we don't want to go there. So I'm going to avoid, or it feels super uncomfortable. There's a power and status situation. And so it doesn't feel like I can have that conversation, should have that conversation, should another word weed, maybe I need to remove, right? I need to weed it out of there. And what are the number of things that have us avoid? And then we have attack. Now, sometimes we attack can be simply that we're pushing at versus backing off. And we can come from avoid and come down and under and into the attack for sure and have that sense of passive aggressive. So in between these, we have this beautiful garden that we can grow. And when we have a garden, we have these walls, fences, whatever you have. We use the term of walls. And then we distinguish walls from boundaries for having conversations and staying in there. In my garden, I have walls to keep certain creatures out or raised beds to keep certain creatures out. And then I have boundaries between certain elements of the garden. So we make a distinction between walls and boundaries. And without, going too far, I'm such my father's daughter with the metaphor. I love metaphors. So hanging out with the walls and boundaries, the language, you get to choose what works for you. Walls are what we decide things are not going to go through. I need some walls to separate things. All right. But the thing is, if I want to be in relationship, I probably want to be between the walls and the messy middle, or I want to drop some of my walls and be in relationship and still allow my boundaries. So I want to be able where we can have the walls, void attack, and in the middle, I can still have boundaries up for my own privacy, who I am. I don't have to share everything. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings when we go to memes or when we try and do things too quickly and we shorten a discussion of them is that we have this idea that if I'm present with you and I've talked about vulnerability and all of that, that I need to have everything. I need to be all or nothing. I'm here and ready for you. But you don't need everything from me. I don't need to overshare myself. So I get to have boundaries, intentional boundaries, and I can keep some things private behind them. I can also keep some things behind them that you don't need. So for me, about sharing about myself and my experience, I decide which things help the relationship in order to move forward with being in a conversation, to be in that messy middle with someone. What is helpful for people to know? What experience is helpful? I can also be aware that I can keep putting things behind the boundary. That's oversharing. You don't need to know that. That's not something that will serve the relationship. That's often what we'll say is what serves the conversation, what serves the relationship. We don't have to overshare and have so much information there. So the boundaries are intentional. Often walls are reflexive. So if the walls go up, we want to make sure that we're in the middle, in the messy middle, and allowing our boundaries to come. And if you have any questions, half thoughts, quarter thoughts, rough drafts, anything on any of this, please pop it in. Courtney will guide me through. And in order to use that term cultivate, and we'll also use the word tend, right? So we want to tend the garden and we need to cultivate the friction. And we talked in the first webinar more about that friction of really the friction creating traction is what I mean. We really want to get that friction to create traction to move things forward. So if we're cultivating that, The messy middle is where we want to stay. And then we create fruitful friction out of that. We want to make sure that because the messy middle has the idea of that messy, you can say muddled middle, you can say murky middle, you can say whatever, but that garden, that sense, we want to make sure we're not thinking that we're getting through that to another place that's fruitful friction. Fruitful friction actually comes out of being in the messy middle with folks. We don't always have to be in the messy middle. We don't always have to be in the garden. There are plenty of times when we have conversations that don't have to be, they can be transactional. I need to just have you do this. We don't have to get into a full-on relationship. We don't have to have that fully present with each other to move that conversation forward. Many times, though, we'll make things transactional and stay behind the walls instead of getting into the messy middle. But messy middle for us is we want to get into the messy middle. This is a little bit of um, I don't know, a warning sign, a pet peeve, a platform, a soapbox for me. Formulas and scripts are essential. And I have colleagues who've created gorgeous formulas and scripts. And we talk about the messy middle. That could be seen as in the idea of the fruitful friction as a formula. The thing is, we want to make sure that we are learning as an individual how to use the script, how to use our voice for the script, how to use our body, and how are we in the formula. So we want to be careful that we aren't trying to solve a problem by grabbing a formula and stepping into the messy middle. We have to use a formula and we have to be super self-aware of how we communicate and how we show up. We are incredibly individual. And it also matters who we're talking to. It matters how big the team is. If it's one-on-one a team, it matters what time of day it is. It matters our relationship with them. It matters what time of day. Everything impacts how that conversation goes. So we want to be careful. SBI is a classic example of a model, right? So we have situation, behavior, and impact. Great model. It's super easy to remember, hanging on to it. SBI doesn't work without us understanding how to be in relationship. What does that person need? Who am I? Who am I in it? What's the power dynamic? How does my voice connect? How does not connect? So we want to make sure that the messiness of the messy middle is that we can't simply organize by putting a simple structure or script on something. We have to be aware of how we come into it. I am an actor. I am a drama teacher. So the simplest analogy for me is that everyone can play Hamlet. Everyone can play Hamlet. They have to say the same script, and everyone's Hamlet will be different. And so we have to understand that just handing them a script, an SBI or a Hamlet script, they aren't going to not have their individual impact on that and how it lands. I hang out there because we often are handed like, here, say this, do this. And those are great. Say that and do this is perfect. If it works for you, and how do you adjust it for yourself? And in that sense, we're going to say, like, what's your own garden? What's your garden? Right. And thinking about noticing your walls. So some people have a sand garden, which I hadn't even thought of till a fabulous client mentioned that. I'm like, right, you don't have to have a garden that Patty Kingsbaker drew. Painted and did with her art. You could have your own idea. What's your garden look like? And it may be different depending on the team. And how do you organize it? The main thing is to think, what are the walls for me that have me avoid or attack and keep me out of coming into the middle with my rake? What keeps me out of that? What keeps me out of coming in and seeing what's happening in there? The thing is, all gardens, all of them, are a mix of beauty and mess. And there's an intentionality behind all of them. So there's a beauty that comes from that intentionality, what we choose to have there. And it's highly dependent upon what we do, and it's dependent upon who's in there. It's a vegetable garden, right? Is it a vegetable garden? Is it a flower garden? And the mess, right? So I have manure in there and I have rotting things, and I have to make sure that I'm tending it so that it really can grow in the way I need it to. How am I hanging out in there? If I think I'm coming into a conversation and it's just going to be simple and it's all easy, I'm missing the human factor of human beings coming together. So that sense of what's the conversation that I'm skipping, that I'm not having, that I am avoiding, because I don't want to have that sense of I don't know how to be in the messy middle. I think maybe I have to overshare in order to be there. I think if it's messy, maybe it's incorrect. I don't know what it is to come together. So, in order to have that fruitful friction, we're understanding the garden and that intention of moving it forward. So, now in the chat, if you would do us the kindness, why bother? Why bother having these conversations? If it's awkward, if it feels uncomfortable, if it can be messy, if frankly, I'd rather just send a message, I'd rather have transactional, share in chat and what your ideas are. If you have the conversation, what's the conversation you're not having? What would shift? And for me, I always go to the co-creativity and moving a business forward. That's where I go, is that sense of, and I think that I had early on, like a year ago, because this idea of using this fruitful friction construct is slightly different. I had a leader say to me, "Oh my goodness, fruitful friction is all about coming together in order to have that co-creativity to have success. If we hire people, two people coming together, right? If we have two people coming together or a group coming together, we want their differences, and there's that sense of rubbing up against each other for that co-creation. What's happening? What's and that just went a wholly different direction. Don't go that direction with that, but that idea of coming together and different ideas sparking off of each other. What moves it forward? What's the outcome? I've had people who are hired because they have differences of opinions, and yet they don't, there's no space for it. People are thinking it's supposed to be smooth. They think they're supposed to be having everything be easy. So they're not aware of that friction creating beautiful traction.
Yeah.
Courtney.
Hillary, we have some things coming into the chat here
Great.
about what would shift if we have those conversations.
Great.
Someone is saying that we would understand one another better. So there's
Oh,
just more understanding.
you know where I went on that one,
Good.
Courtney? More understanding is that we always assume, I do, I should speak for myself. I always assume I understand people. I know where they're coming from. Like it's amazing to me when I actually and get curious. I mean, all those beautiful
Yeah.
tools that we use, get curious, get into the conversation, stay present. You're like, wow, that is not what I thought was going on there. That, and we always say, well, what my intent is and my landing. Oh, it just opens up tons
Yeah,
of conversations, beautiful things. Yes,
totally.
understanding, leaving
Totally.
room for more.
And well, two things. First, Hillary, can you bring yourself back so we can see you as you're
Yes,
chatting?
I
That would be
can
great.
totally do that.
Thank
Maybe.
you.
I don't know. I'm
Maybe we'll
like,
see.
yes, I totally
Um,
can.
and then the other thing that can happen if we have these conversations is we continue to grow our community rather than making it smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
as you
like
avoid
that.
relationships that you're
Oh, look,
challenging,
I can read the chat if I put my glasses on.
we
That's
make it smaller.
fantastic. So
There's
I'm
more
to do.
appreciation for differences in style. Yeah.
Yes. E.B. White. No, not E.B. White. Totally different. Madeline L'Engle, different children's writer completely. Madeline L'Engle was all about the fact that when we have good communication going on and good relationships going on, our community expands. It totally had me go there. It's a book called Circle of Light by Madeline L'Engle. She wrote A Wrinkle in Time. It's a children's book. And I don't know why that stuck with me, but the idea of when we have fruitful friction, we have conversation going, our world expands. I love that. Thank you. I went, that's
Yeah.
what I think like a starburst, people. So off I went. I'm back. I'm back now. And more appreciation for each other. Yes. Right? That for me, that more appreciation for differences and styles is that I feel like we think that in theory. We think it or we even share it in theory. And then without some of these tools to stay in the conversation and even just to simply understand that it will be awkward, we try to smooth things over and we leave that. So we keep not having the conversation we need to have because we feel like it should be smooth or easy or comfortable or all those things. And it takes work, right? It does take that work and the awkwardness. So that is huge. I always will go back to that original room where I've been doing training forever, but the original room where the word friction first popped up in our conversation to describe what we were doing. And I was like, yes, that's a beautiful word to describe what's happening. And in that room was a guy with major differences. And he didn't know how to navigate. He was hired because he saw everything differently. He was hired for that. And then he just felt like he was causing trouble. And slicing and dicing. I go to the bad Edward Scissorhands image all the time, right? So Edward Scissorhands, right, can slice and dice or have beautiful haircuts and create beautiful shrubbery, right? So what is happening there is if we understand our differences and how to navigate with using those tools with skill and with finesse to stay in the messy middle, to really cultivate that garden, to tend the garden, our differences become gorgeous um, activators, and they have an intentional quality, and they add flavor, and they all ideas coming together. So I love that. Thank you. Thank you all for that. And yes, so I obviously get super excited, and I'm super pumped about the whole concept. And so if we go to one technique for today, I mean, we're here together talking about these concepts, and I do want to check in with you all. Have you had any? Just make sure you've written down some word weeds that have popped up. Have you had any word weeds pop up that you want to make sure you're writing down and aware of? I just want to make sure. You can also pop them into chat so you can share them. And sometimes it's a private thing like, wow, I'm totally going there because that feels in my body like conflict. So we're going into the first thing. I'm mentioning feeling on purpose, is that we really want to make sure we're trusting our embodiment and our breath. Being drama teacher, being drama teachers, Articulate is an arts-based company. So that sense of coming through the arts and performing arts, is there's a real strong sense of being in our body. So there's often a phrase, it's like we embody our values, right? And so that has a headier feeling. We are like embodiment, like being in our bodies, because we want to get in our breath and we want to be aware of our nonverbals and we want to be aware of our eye contact and our eyes and our face and our voice and all of that. So actual embodiment in breath is a much overlooked and sidelined element of staying present with each other. This part of ourselves can be quite annoying because it's quite revealing. It's why we often use the term poker tells, right? So poker, the card game where we reveal, like we don't want to let people know whether we have a good hand or not. With these eyes, pretty good, pretty easy to play poker with me. You can tell what's going on. So the poker tells of our communication, there's so much to be aware of. And because they're poke-tails, we're not always correct in interpreting them. That idea of getting to know each other better and misunderstanding what people are saying and things like that. So being in our bodies, aware of ourselves, understanding that we cannot not communicate. Everything we communicate is connecting with people. And we want to be aware of our breath. When we get nervous, we hold our breath, which the first most important thing that does to us is gets us on the fight, flight, freeze, faint mode. And one of the detrimental things it does is when we hold our breath, we get no oxygen to our brain, doesn't go into our lungs, doesn't go into our bloodstream, doesn't go to our brain. We cannot think. So then our body goes into fight flight. So we are then behind the walls. We are no longer present with each other. If we remain embodied, aware of our body, aware of our breath, and connecting, we can stay in the conversation and stay present and rock our awkward. The more present we are, often the more awkward we can feel because we are in the relationship. I'm with you, I'm here. The more I'm thinking about that, the more awkward I feel. Awkward is okay. It's a self-awareness. I'm there. You can choose a different word if that works for you. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to shake. We're going to shake. So this is a dog. Obviously, this is a dog, but we reset the nervous system with a good shake. So it might not be that I'm in a conversation with someone. I'm trying to be in the messy middle. I'm having the conversation. I've avoided that conversation I haven't had. And I'm like, hang on, maybe that doesn't work right in the moment. Maybe just a little shake. But you can do it before you step into the room, before you step into the Zoom call, before you get on the phone call, bouncing on our toes, shaking, releasing that reset of our vagus nerve, resetting our nervous system. There's a belief, the reason we have the pup there is scientifically, they have explored the fact that dogs shake more often to reset their nervous system even than to shake off the water. So when you feel that shake coming on, do it, right? Do that kind of thing. You can even, all right, let's shake and get this together. We have a silly thing to reset when we've used the word we didn't mean to use or an idea or started in the wrong place. We say etch-a-sketch, which is a beautiful idea of shaking, right? You shake it to reset the sand. So a little etch-a-sketch, really good for the body. And so then we think about the exhale. Many of us, when we're talking about embodied, will go into the sense of Okay, take a deep breath. When we start with take a deep breath, we usually end up taking a shallow breath. So if you're in the middle and you're about to you're going to have the conversation that you haven't been having, you want to have that conversation, and you're like, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. We tend to go here. Shallow breath, top, clavicular breath sometimes, the top of our lungs. There are not as many blood vessels at the top of our lungs as there are at the bottom of our lungs. So the more deeply we breathe, the more oxygen gets into our bloodstream. So it's physiological. In order to kickstart that, our body knows what to do. Our head doesn't necessarily, right? So our body knows that when we're exasperated or holding our breath or frustrated, we exhale. We don't tend to go, right? And also, if I was trained as a runner, if we're doing anything athletic, we're exhaling. So that sense of, right? So how do we exhale in order to allow the air back in? So wherever you are, you have to be quiet because there are people around you. Just go. If you don't have to be quiet, then sigh it out. Ha! That sigh is our natural reaction as a human being to reset. Whew, ha! It can be exasperated, it can be frustrated, it can just be a sigh of relaxation. Ha! So that sense of that beautiful reset. So exhale to allow the air back in. And then we have more oxygen for clear thinking. Again, I'm fascinated by how in society we've gotten really focused on everybody take a deep breath. And I am one of those people who did that for years because I am a drama teacher. I was telling you, take a deep breath, right? And I was like, okay, how can I make sure that I'm helping people, right? Show up in their bodies. The exhale is what your body needs. So now I'm going to connect it. All of this is connected embodiment and breath, shaking, the exhale, allowing the air back in. So not taking a breath, allowing. Exhale is intentional. We speak on the exhale. Exhale is intentional. And the inhale is reflexive. So as long as we get the air out, our air will come back in. It's why, silly story for you, right? Is why when you lock your knees and you're singing in a choir, does your body have you pass out? Because you're not breathing. The oxygen isn't getting there. So your body's like, I'm going to take over, pass you out so that you get your breathing back again, right? So when you pass out, your breathing kicks back in again. When we hold our breath because we're nervous or whatever's going on, conversation. We're going to connect it to this tool, classic tool. So the classic tool is the idea of story and fact. Okay. So if we have story and fact, very important tool, the idea of remembering that we as human beings put story on things. Our story is not always correct. Sometimes it is. Sometimes parts of it are. And we're often thinking our story is right on target. Not always. So what are the facts? The thing is, a lot of people will leave out the impact of their emotions on their story. And being aware that being embodied, being connected to our breath, shaking it out and being there, we are going to be more aware of our emotions. We are emotional beings. Human beings are emotional beings. We want to learn to regulate our emotions, not to try to push them aside. And we need to honor the fact that my emotional reaction to something, I'm feeling it. I even said that. What are the words? What are the feelings that are bringing up the word weeds, right? So I was like, what are you feeling that then the word pops up? Or how does the word come up and you have a feeling about it? We want to loop in emotion instead of trying to get rid of it, loop it in and make friends with it. Yes, we're performers, so emotion is part of communication for sure. But the idea is that sometimes I have an emotional reaction that then creates the story, and then I learn the facts. Sometimes I've created story, and then I have a response to the story I've created, and then I have a fact. In order to be navigating and the fruit, that messy middle, navigating and tending that garden, we need to be very aware of these three elements acting together and to recognize, be super self aware to stay present. You don't have to slam yourself. Oh, I've created a story. Go, oh, look at me. I'm a human being. I created 5 stories, not even one. I have 5. And maybe parts of each of those stories is correct. And wow, I had an emotional reaction to one and not to the other. As we move through these, we have lots of exercises for all of these tools and we move people through things. Right now, handing you the concept of this. And I want to be thinking that I use an example of a car parked in front of our house, depending on my relationship, my emotional relationship, and my story relationship, and my factual relationship with the different neighbors that I have, I create a totally different story based on why there's a car in front of my house when I know whose car it is. I create for one neighbor a whole thing. Oh, they must have like the young teen's boyfriend must be visiting and now they've parked there. It's like this story. And I have a story and then I get a little warm feeling about it. Across the street, I'm like, oh, it's utilitarian. I know they need to park. They have a bunch of projects they're working on. So it kind of has more of a fact feeling, right? Someone else, I'm like, hey, why are you in front of our house? I might have an emotional reaction to it. And then I put a story on it, right? And then I create a story there. So that is based. There's a car in front of my house and I have all different reactions. Now think about I'm in a relationship, I'm in a conversation, I'm trying to have a conversation with someone, and I have decided they a lot of facts. They showed up late, perhaps, maybe even a fraction of a moment late. I put a whole story on it, had emotional reaction to it. It can be their what I'm hearing in their tone, which we're going to talk more about tone of voice in a webinar 3, like how that shows up. So I want you to be thinking about all these factors. There's a lot going on. So when we try to have a formula or a set script, we miss the nuance of human interaction and our own individuality and their individuality and all the factors coming in. The messy middle is because we are human beings and it's messy, just like a farm, just like a garden can have a messiness to it. And then we intentionally bring order to it. We intentionally are tending it so that things can grow, so that we can stay in that conversation. And right now, write down. You can share it too, but I'm a big fan of writing things down like, okay, that conversation, what do I have to do differently with the story that I've created or my emotional reaction or the facts? Have I separated facts from story? Are they just one little messy ball of string, everything all connected, and I need to separate them into 3 categories? So write down if there's that conversation that you need to have, that you haven't had, that you want to be having, that conversation. Being present, getting your breath, shaking it out, being there. And I want you to know that next webinar, right? We're almost at an end of time here. We're going to be talking about more techniques to have better conversations. So more ideas. Love sharing this idea. And I want you to know that you can sign up for the newsletter. Please do. And connect on LinkedIn too and share ideas. If you have had responses to this, you can always send me an email to it. In LinkedIn, could be easier there. Send me, oh, this is a scenario, or oh, this is what happened in my body. I was aware that this happened. And we have a book coming out for Fruitful Friction coming out. So this idea, we want to tend the garden between the walls, that messy middle, that's the land of opportunity. And that's how you cultivate traction to move things forward. And that outcome is fruitful friction. Long before it has to be conflict, long before you go there, let's make awkward the habit so we don't have to go to anxious. Let's rock that awkward, own that awkward, and be in that space together. Thanks for hanging out with us. And I am going to share this because this is a certificate, because we just gave you a webinar. We love sharing this information and we want to do more with you. Courtney, tell them what more they can do.
Yes.
And I'm going
So
to fade myself out. It'll be fun. I'll be like,
Yes, so this
whoa.
is just the beginning. And as Hillary was chatting today about that this is not just a formula that or a script. This is really something that you practice and learn to embody. And how do you take these tools that we're sharing today and you use them for yourself? So if you are ready to explore how you can use these tools and adjust them to work for you, we invite you to join the Fruitful Friction Certificate Program. And through this program, you will have live virtual coaching sessions, peer practice pods, self-paced learning, assessments, and a 2-day in-person capstone project right here in the Articulate office. And in all of this learning, you are going to learn to really apply the tools that we've started to lay out today so that you can stay in conversations and that
Yeah.
you can have those conversations that you have been putting off. The conversations that you're avoiding, that I'm avoiding, that we're all avoiding, do
Yes.
not get easier with time. In fact, they will get easier with practice. So come practice with us. The certificate cohort dates are August 25th through October 13th. We will meet virtually on Tuesday mornings, and the capstone will be October 26th and 27th right here in Denver. So if you are ready to jump into this messy middle and explore this fruitful friction with us, please come join us. Sign up for the certificate program. You can use the QR code there. It will also be in a follow-up email that we're sending. And if the certificate program is not what you're looking for and you want to bring this to your team in a different way, please reach out to us. We would love to chat with you and figure out how we can customize a session to meet your needs. Hillary.
Yes. Thank you, Courtney. Fabulous. So Courtney and I absolutely adore answering questions and having more conversations about this. So please feel free to reach out to us, connect, send us an email, connect us on LinkedIn, ask us questions. And we're back in August for the part 3. We'll have another webinar. And yes, so Courtney, thank you for all of that. And thank you all for being here. And have a great day. And please connect with us, connect with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate you. And if anyone has any questions, we hang out here. You can answer. You can ask a question here and we'll
Yeah.
have that. Thank you.
Yes. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.